Yes.
Okay, we are live. Hey everyone. Welcome to our
Hello.
first meetup of 2021. For the ones that are here for the first time, my name is Sara Mesquita, and together with my friend Coro Doye, we created Data Visualization Lisboa. Our goal is to promote a database community here in Portugal, unfortunately now online, bringing together everyone that wants to transform raw data into effective visualizations. So thank you so much, Nadieh and Shirley, for being here with us today. We'll welcome you in a second to the stage.
Yes. Because right now, what we're talking about today is the book that came out of a great project. And you can have a look on a lot of information for that. For example, the best one is to just check out the website. That's where it all kind of started. You can see all the projects there, and they even share it with the book that we recommend you to buy. Ours didn't arrive yet. To have, like, for example, a nice sneak preview in the book. So you can see what projects are there for the one who didn't know yet so much about it. And they even offer you 2 chapters, not just about them, to see into a project. And to get a really nice grasp of this really heavy and big book they created. And we welcome you two on the stage now. Hello.
Yay.
Hello. Thank you so
Hello.
much for having us and the welcome.
Yes.
Exactly.
So we will start with Nadieh. Can you share with us some words about you? And just
Of course.
please.
So hi everyone. My name is Nadieh. I live in the Netherlands, and I'm an astronomer by study. But then I turned into a data scientist, and through that I discovered that data visualization was even more my thing. So I eventually, through like a a route that just goes in circles, I eventually ended up right now as a freelancing data visualization designer. I work under the name of Visual Cinnamon. And I generally like working on really big data sets, or just generally big data sets, and especially if it's about science, still even more awesome if it's about astronomy. But yeah, that's bright colors and circle things. That's what I like a lot. So yeah, that's me.
Super nice. And yeah, Shirley, what I really liked as well, or what I can identify with, is that you as a kid liked a lot of math and art, and then we really fall into code and brought it somehow, well, not somehow, like into great project together. That it's for me always really inspiring, and why I went a bit also to the data with side. And yeah, let's tell us a bit more about you.
Thank you so much. That was basically my intro. Hi, my name is Shirley. I'm based right outside of San Francisco. Like Caroline said, growing up as a child, I really loved both art and math. Took a lot of math classes in school, drew and painted for 14 years before university. And then when I went to university, I decided to study business because I was really tired of math classes. And 3 years in, realized that was not for me. Started taking computer science classes, fell in love with software and coding. And I think it really is, at the end of the day, I think I still really love math. And I think the logical side of coding, I just fell in love with that. So when I graduated, I went and got a software engineering role at a big data company. And at that big data company, that's where I was introduced to D3.js, which is the JavaScript library that we basically do most of our work in to make our data visualizations. And from there, I realized that D3 was just one tool in this kind of like huge world, big world. I don't know if it's huge. It's a big world of data visualization. And then really fell in love with data visualization because of how much it combines all of the things that I really enjoy, the math side, the geometry, the art, and the code. And so I am currently an independent freelancer. I work with clients had to help tell visual stories with their data, usually with very like custom interactivity. But currently, I'm just trying to figure out what to do with my future after this book.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Nice.
Okay,
Thanks.
so perfect introduction. Let's go dive into the questions that we prepared for you. But everyone is welcome to post questions on YouTube. Don't forget to take the opportunity live to ask your own questions. So I will start with one. So do you think your collaboration would have been possible if the two of you were in totally different stages of knowledge in terms of data visualization?
Whoa, what a great question.
Nice,
Oh,
good
that's
that
a
we
new
made
one.
this impression. Good start.
Wait, hold on. To fully answer that question, I guess we have to first analyze what stage of data visualization we even were when we first started talking in 2016. So I guess if I remember me, I had done like 4 years of software engineering work, a lot of D3, a lot of using D3 with other JavaScript libraries, very little design, like information design knowledge, and very little data knowledge. So I think that's where I was coming in from. If Nadieh, you want to take over.
Yeah, let's see. In 2016, at that point, I had about a year and a half of knowing that data viz was my thing. Before that, I had about 3.5 years of being a data scientist. And then I had switched jobs for half a year when I became like a full-time data visualization designer for dashboards using D3. So I think I'd been using D3 on a daily basis for maybe a year at that point. But coding was so JavaScript, I guess I learned that about a year and a half ago at that time as well. So definitely still a lot to learn on coding side, still though, I always do. But the data side was, where I felt comfortable and still do feel comfortable, although it's been 4 years since I've been really into data science as I have been at that time. So I think we, as usual, we were more like a Venn diagram, but I feel like maybe not that far apart from each other.
I think
in different
yeah, I think perhaps the way to summarize is that we had experience creating personal projects. Like you and I had published I think I have been publishing personal projects with D3 for like 2 years or so. And you were doing it for like at least a year before we started talking, right?
About
year and a half, 2
yeah,
years.
yeah.
So I think even though we had different strains, in terms of where we came, because of our backgrounds, I think it wasn't necessarily that we had similar skill sets. I think it was that we had similar experiences in completing projects, personally motivated projects. And that was probably what really helped. And then I think what we didn't realize at the time that we do now is like what Nadieh said about the Venn diagram of like, we actually did come from pretty different skill backgrounds, and that actually we really complemented each other, because I know I learned so much when I read Nadieh's like data and sketch and code sections. I mean, but like I learned the most from her data sections. So if anything, I feel like I'm more rounded because of our experience with data sketches.
Lovely.
Oh yeah, me definitely. But to answer the question, like if people come together from very different like skill levels, I don't see that it would be very bad. Maybe that would be interesting because the one that's new could learn a lot from the experienced one, but maybe the experienced one could get sort of a fresh look on things because the new one isn't yet ingrained into how things are supposed to go. But so I would definitely not say no to it, and just if that is what comes up, then just go with it if you wanna do a collaboration. Yeah,
definitely.
Sounds good. It's like so to add even the next question, because it fits well, is do you think can someone without so many skills on visualization or like information design learn what it takes to create one by reading your book?
I think so. Our book doesn't contain actual code, so there are really tiny, like like maybe 0.5% of our book is a little bit of code here and there, but we try to make it very sort of tool very sort of tool agnostic and think more about the mindset. So how do you go from maybe just an idea or maybe just a data set and go through that entire process of sketching, and what if you run against issues? How might you deal with it, or how can you get over that, and just generally trying to give inspiration in getting to beyond that default. Like how have we tried to make our visualizations not just a line chart or a scatter plot, but how did we make it into something more? I think so. It's a lot about the general knowledge and not necessarily about how are we going to program this. So that is something that everybody for themselves has to still figure out, whether they use Tableau or D3 or some other library. That's up for them, but hopefully this book can really help them sort of open up that horizon of possibilities and how they might actually get to that horizon and place their dot even farther on there in terms of what they want to create.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Shirley, you want to add or?
Oh yeah. So I guess for us, our intended audience for this book was like basically anybody interested in data visualization. And that's why we were like pretty tool agnostic. But we also wanted to make sure that it was like it like covered a range from like beginner friendly to like to also have things for like the most advanced of people. I'm not sure if actually this is answering your question anymore, but I think this is kind of building off of what Nadieh was saying, which is some of the feedback I've gotten is so cool. I had my friend that does not do any data visualization. She's a software engineer, and she was reading through this book, and she's like, this is super cool because it actually makes this whole process feel so approachable. She's like, I don't know how to code it just yet, but now I'm starting to understand the thought process of going through the whole thing. So her, as someone that's never thought about data visualization, she was like, I feel like I can make one now. And that's super cool. And I recently also had another friend that's like quite advanced with like, data viz and D3 and Geo. And he was saying that like, it's super cool that like, we also not only have that kind of like beginner friendly approach, but also he said every single page he opens, he's like, there's like something for me to new to learn. And he was like, you have like a write-up about web workers. He's like, what? And web workers is just like a web technology that lets you like make your web application more performant, and it's really useful in if you have more complex data visualizations. And he's like a software engineer. He's like, I did not expect that. So we really tried to make it like, worth it for the whole range of data viz practitioners. Yeah.
Is it then like you started both with having like your own process to go through like one topic? I mean, you set like a name for like each topic for the 12 months, and then you had your own ideas, you grasped your own data. So did you both had a own approach in the beginning, and maybe that merged a bit, or like something came out the similar?
Yeah, definitely. We were always free to do whatever we wanted and how we wanted to do it. And for example, I like to use lots of different tools for each of the different steps. So I use R for my data gathering and processing, and then sketch my design on just plain pen and paper, or maybe my iPad, and then go into the coding with Visual Studio Code and Firefox or Chrome with D3, and then maybe into Illustrator to make some things like a legend or finish it off if it's static. So that was my approach, and I know that Shirley can explain hers in a minute, but it was different. And but we definitely, again, throughout, because the concept of the collaboration was really just sort of being able to share what we were doing and just get feedback on that. So that we were both going through this process almost at the same time and then learning from each other. So in that sense, I definitely learned a lot from the way that Shirley did things, especially from sort of the coding perspective. And so I think by the end we were more on the same line. Then we started like with our own processes and then learning from each other and then sort of optimizing.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think even the sections that we've chosen, the data sketch code, that whole process when we first started, it's funny because like this is truly kind of like I feel like the mark of a collaboration, right? When I first started with data sketches, I did not like to sketch. I did not like I didn't do that process. And so for me, I was like, okay, it's going to be data and code. And Nadieh's like, you gotta sketch. Like you gotta put your ideas on paper. And I'm like, but why? I'm just like, I'm gonna think it up in my head and I'm gonna just directly code it. And she's like, let's just have a sketch section. And then and I was like, okay, fine, collaboration.
Learning from each other.
Yeah, and actually, I've really come to value that step because I think previously when I was like as a software engineer, I think because all of like as you work as a software engineer at a company, there's already designers and people that have like, done the design step for you, right? But for personal projects, I used to really dislike sketching because I'm like, why would I put in that time if I can just go directly to code? And what I realized is that I'm much more efficient when I put my ideas down on paper. And this is something that Nadieh used to say a lot, which is maybe still says, which is that like when you put your ideas out onto the paper, you can see its faults, you can see like where it would work well, where it would not work well. And you really kind of like, I think when it's just in my head, I can think through the first step, but once I put it onto paper, then I can like, then that's like out of my head and I can think about the second step, the third step, and I can like keep building off of it. And so even though it does take me more time to put my ideas onto paper, it saves me so much more time in the coding process. Like that's something that like, I learned from Nadieh and from the data sketches process. So like definitely we started off with very different processes. And as we like, did all of the different projects and started to read each other's like write-ups, for me, my other like almost retrospectively hilarious learning is that, again, another thing as a software engineer is that we have this weird pride of being like, we can use code to solve anything. The code is like the hammer for all nails. And I used to just use code for everything, including, so this is something I talk about in the book and how dumb I feel about it now. But for one of my projects, I literally wrote a CSV file, a comma separated values file in a text editor, as in I would write the value, put in a comma, write the value, put in a comma, write the value, and then like go on to the next line. So stupid. And then I read Nadieh's write-up that was like, I do my data cleaning in Excel. And I'm like,
much easier.
Yeah, useful sometimes.
And I was like, this makes so much more sense. Oh my God, this is such a time saver. And since I've been like on this mission to figure out like much more time efficient tools other than code that will like help me make my process so much more efficient. So yeah. So we've like nice kind of converged.
Cool, very nice advice. And going back to the technical problems, I'm not sure if this question makes sense now because you already mentioned that you code a lot, then directly and not anymore, but you used to. But I wanted to know if it happened to any of you to be stuck in a technical problem. So you wanted to really make it like in a certain shape or move in a certain way, and you were stuck for a while and you wanted to give up on the visualization. And how you solved that problem? If you went around, like if you decided to do something else just giving, yeah, please share your experience, because it happened to me and to everyone that actually tries that, to do that visualization, and how to overcome this.
Ooh, that is such a great one. It happens to me. It used to happen to me so much. I think like, you know, when I was first starting to learn D3, and then when we were starting with data sketches, I think it doesn't happen with me as much anymore. And that's why I feel like I need to figure out what else to do in the future, because I'm getting too comfortable. That's a side thing. When it used to happen all the time with D3 or like any other kind of code problem, if it's something that I feel like is small enough, like if I feel like it's, you know, a technical challenge that's within my grasp, like I know conceptually I can do it, and maybe there's just like bugs standing in my way, or like maybe there's just like this one tiny piece that I'm like missing from my like how I'm thinking through the code, then usually I'll like take a break. I'll, you know, go and work on something else, or maybe I'll go do something else. Maybe I'll like go outside, and just I think just like take my mind off of it. And that's something that we commonly do with like software engineering. Like if we're stuck on a piece of code, instead of banging our head on it, we leave and then we come back, and that break is really helpful. If it's something that like I've dreamt up this design and I love this design, but like I don't even know where to start to like, you know, implement this design, then that's when I file that idea for later. So I'll like draw out this design, and I'm like, this is so exciting, but I don't have the technical ability to do that just yet. And the most exciting thing is I'll like start working on other projects, and you know, like soon it's like months later, years later, and suddenly I've worked on enough other projects, and I'm like, wait, I think I can do that now. And then I'll like come back, and with all of the like years of new knowledge gain, I'm able to like implement it. And one of those examples is the very first chapter I have is I wanted to make flower shapes. I wanted to make really natural looking flower shapes, but I couldn't do it. And by the chapter for nature, which I think Nadieh just showed, I think it was like 2 years later, and I had gained enough other technical knowledge that I'm like, I can now generate natural looking flower shapes. And so I guess I think that'd be too much detail if I go into it. But all of that to say is like, I think even if you can't do it now, the really exciting thing is that if we're kind of like always working on our like coding or our technical skills, someday, the exciting thing to me is that like someday we can do it. And that is super exciting. I also feel like I just came off really arrogant at the beginning to say that I don't have that many things that I get stuck with in D3 anymore. I just want to say, like, I still get stuck on plenty of things, just not as often in D3. So I want to give that disclaimer.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also have sort of a Pinterest board where I just put pins for things that I think, oh, those are so amazing, but I have no idea how to create them, but maybe someday, exactly. And also when you're stuck on a technical problem right then and there, taking a break and then coming back to it really helps, but also so what I find is that when I'm stuck technically, I'm so sort of into it and trying to fix it that my mind is not able to sort of take that step back again and look at it from a different angle. So that's also why I take the break and I come back and maybe think they're like with coding, sometimes you can have different ways to get the same visual result. So really just approaching it from a different angle, and by taking that break and taking that step back and thinking again, like, okay, so apparently this way isn't working. Can I think of any other way to like a different technical way to make the visual outcome look the same? And maybe that I can do, but also it is a process of experience, and sometimes at the start you have wild ideas, and it's really about finding that compromise of how far can your technical skills at that point in time take you. And is that, are you happy enough with that, or try and find different ways? So even if the exact technical thing that you wanted didn't work, but maybe by adding some other things, you can, like maybe on a design scale or colors or effects, you can actually make it into something that you are happy with, even though that one thing didn't work. I mean, I've also often had the issue that I don't write I write code that works, but it's not necessarily very efficient. So I am often also struggling with performance issues where things are just moving too slowly for it to actually publish it, because nobody would want to see that jagged stuff on the screen. So I have to take a step back and think about, okay, so apparently that I can't make work. So what else can I do to make it work within the sort of the constraints of performance that I have? And it's really about those sort of compromises between me and the browsers that I have to work with, which is a tough relationship.
Well, we even have here the first audience questions all coming in. So we can start with one, for example, from I hope I pronounce his name right, Ananya Roy. His question is, did you ever have to spend too much effort on, even so it fits right now, to data preparation or gathering? In this case, we're able to influence the data providers to improve their data formats or standards or delivery modes. Methods.
I can say yes to the first question, but I don't think I've ever had an impact on the places where the data is being gathered that they make updates. I think often in terms of effort on data preparation and gathering is sort of self-imposed, because the data is either not available, so I have to do stuff manually, or I have to take it from different places and put it together manually, and it's not necessarily their fault, but so it's data gathering and especially data cleaning can take a lot of time. I had this thing in the past where I would say, I spend 80% on the data gathering and then 20% on the rest, or maybe then suddenly that becomes 80% on the data visualization side as well at some point. But it's I guess it's a natural step in the process that once you start going away from the government data sets that are nicely prepared for you and available, it's messy data. Data's messy almost everywhere, and you need to take that into account, that it's going to take a lot of time. But it's a good thought to be able to then go back to a data provider and tell them what's wrong with their data sets. But I don't think I've ever taken that time to go back.
Or maybe you influence even with the way you're working, so they will see maybe how to clean up the data for you.
Yeah, I feel like I think one of the best things about gathering data yourself or cleaning data yourself is then you get to have a very intimate understanding of your own data set. And I think that's the most exciting projects, right? The funnest projects when you gather the data yourself, because then that means you're literally creating your own data set that other people might not have seen before. But that's also a lot of work. I don't take that on lightly. I feel like Nadieh's super good at it. I lose patience in the data cleaning. But I guess that's another place we can plug our book, because we talk about that a lot, because a lot of our projects we gathered our own data. There's a lot of really interesting write-ups, data section write-ups in our book, because so many of our projects. Oh yeah. Okay.
We have to see it once more. One of these nice write-ups.
Yeah, even from the very beginning, Nadieh's write-up about how she got, all of the locations for her Lord of the Rings data set, where she just sat through and rewatched all of the movies and then manually entered in that information. That's super cool. And what we go into a lot of details about all of the different ways, different combinations of manual and automated data gathering we've done. It's not always fun, but it's
necessary.
I think it's really worth it in the end. I think the ones I did the manual gathering, those are some of my favorite projects by the end. As for data providers, I don't think I've ever the one the one where I went through Hamilton lyrics twice and manually gathered all of the data. It took me, I think, 3 full days. I don't think I've ever gone back to a data provider. I'm too lazy to do that. And I feel like, by that point, I've already cleaned the data for myself. I also think that there's something, um, if I'm thinking about client projects, for example, and they are providing the data, let's say, then it's easier for me to write a short, small, like script in the middle of their data and my project that like kind of like massages their data into whatever I need. And that's just because, like from a practicality standpoint, I did want to mention that I think it's a lot more work for, let's say, like, their data engineers or whoever is gathering their data to go and change all of their formats, especially if, for my project, if my data requirements, like the way that I require the data to be formatted changes multiple times throughout the project because we haven't finalized on a visualization, then it sucks for me to go back and tell the client or the data provider I want them to change the format like 3 or 4 different times. But if I just have that kind of like middle script, then I can just go and change that middle script 3 or 4 times and not have to bother them. So there is a practicality in terms of like not bothering the data provider, but rather just doing that middle step ourselves.
Yeah, great.
Super cool. Super cool information. And we have here another very nice question from Beatriz Malveiro. Sorry if it's covering your heads just a little bit. Sorry. So she says, congrats on the book. As you both seem to have an interest in mathematics, what's a fun math thing you ended up using in a visualization that you never thought you would use outside a classroom? Back to you.
I need to think about this.
Basically all of trigonometry.
Okay.
Or geometry. Let's be honest.
Some basic linear algebra to calculate the normal vector. Wait, I can show this one at least.
Yeah.
So let's find that image. All right, I guess. So for my figures in the sky, I hope I can show it. Bloody hell. This is a mirror image. You see the lines? There are these lines that are quite next to each other from star to star. So basically, I know I have one star here and another star here, and I want to draw a line between them. But I want to draw 18 lines between them, and they all should be parallel. And the easiest way to actually calculate, like how I only know these 2 points, but I actually want to know them parallel and parallel and parallel. And to be able to calculate that offset easily, you can actually use some easy linear algebra to calculate the normal vector, so that you can really just say, I want the normal vector, then I want to step, always step 0.5 in that direction and draw a new line. So that was maybe one thing. But also, lots of trigonometry, but I don't think I've ever had to use like derivatives or other more. It's not very difficult math in terms of the visualization side of the data. I think it's still the data gathering, the data analysis side that does get maybe a little bit more difficult math. But the visual side it's really just that placement on the screen using trig and like I said, some easy vector math.
Did you gain new skills, maybe new mathematical? You didn't know before?
Some that were hidden somewhere.
No,
I don't think so. I think it's all like, I think it's just a lot of Pythagorean theorem, a lot of a lot of converting from polar coordinates to Euclidean coordinates, a lot of so very basic geometry, but just never things. I distinctly remember sitting in my trig class in high school being like, why would I ever use this in real life? Like, where would I ever use this in real life? And then first year out of college, out of university, sitting there trying to do a personal project, trying to map some points onto the screen. And I was like, crap, there was that one thing. My boyfriend, now husband, be like, what is that called? Soka. And he's like, Soka. And I'm like, oh yes. Oh crap.
And then you wish you kept your mathematic book or your writings from the school?
Yeah, I wish. I really wish. I was like, I can't remember any of this anymore. There was one time when I was trying to like calculate how to place dots equidistant from each other along a spiral. So it's like there was a project, and I tried to find the math formula, and the mathematical formula had like integrals, like so many integrals, and I was like, I don't understand this derivation. Ended up brute forcing it like in code, but that was, I think, the one time where it was like really something I have not seen in years and could not understand. Yeah.
Very cool.
But
So we want to go on to one that is also absolutely one of my interests to ask. This question is from Philippe Afonso. Has it ever happened to you that on the paper and the sketch, your ideas look like nice and clear, but when you use the actual data, like the full data set, I would even say not like the part, that the visualization looks ugly or confusing or totally not what you expected?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's like, 50% of the time for me, where you have such a nice idea and you plug in the data and it's like, nope, this is not going to work. It doesn't look nice at all. I have all this overlap over here, or the points are actually not distributed nicely enough because everything looks kind of the same. So my idea where like it would be all over the place, they're all just over here, and those kinds of things. Yeah, that's pretty normal for me. And then you have to kind of see, like, can I massage this specific idea to do to make it look interesting, or do I have to really sort of start from scratch again and think about a completely different design now that I have the idea
completely
working.
different. Okay.
Yeah, completely different. It's not. I don't like. I know there's one client project where I had specifically that where they actually wanted me to do one of my data sketches concepts from royal constellations, where I've mapped the family tree of European royal family in sort of like a big space, and they thought their data set would work with that as well. And I applied the same concept to their data set, and didn't work at all. It was just ugly as hell, not insightful at all. And I told my client, well, I need to completely rethink this design. And then I went through 3 days where I tried 5, 6, 7, 8 different ideas, but always on their actual data set, because it was such a big data set that I couldn't foresee how it might look when I applied an idea. And eventually sort of did converge to one that did work for their data set, but it was completely different from what it initially the outset was.
It's super interesting.
I think there's a lesson that we both of us, I think, reference a few times in the book, which is this concept of like sketching and like sketching with code. And so I think there's definitely data sets where we can sketch an idea, and then we plug it we plug in the data and it just works out. Oftentimes I think those are much smaller data sets, like any data sets that I think is less than a few hundred data points, maybe even less than 100 data points. I find that the smaller the data set, the easier it is for us to kind of like grok what might be going on in the data set. So it's easier for us to just like kind of think of an idea and sketch it out. Another thing is like I noticed that if I'm trying to do a very specific type where I'm not trying to aggregate the data set or do any special positioning, but like I'm just trying to show each data point by itself, visualized in some way. So the example is like my very first project called Film Flowers, and then each movie is just a flower. In that case, it's a direct translation of my sketch idea to the final. But if once it gets like bigger data sets, I think it really has to do with how much we can understand the shape of the data to be able to kind of figure out how to design for it well. And so I think I know Nadieh says this a lot for like any projects from her for her where it's a network, she just goes into code right away. And I think it's this like some data sets are just so complicated that you just want to see it. You just want to see it visualized in some form first, so that you can kind of understand the shape of it. And then that's what we call the sketching with code of like, usually what I do is I code a little bit, then sketch some ideas, code a little bit, sketch some ideas, and just try different ideas, and then putting it into code onto the screen right away. And this is such a great question. There's like a whole chapter where I went through like 8 different iterations of like different ideas because the data set was just so big and I couldn't figure out how to visualize it well. And this is the culture chapter. Yeah. So this is my culture chapter where like literally I think it went through, I think 7 or 8
So
different
nice to see them. It's like I'm so like in love with this write-ups that you made. Really, like always seeing this now. I can't wait for my book to flip that.
Yay! Yeah, and then the final is, you know, completely different from most of the ideas I had, and yeah.
But it went out well. So like you're satisfied with the result, or is it even more you wished it would be the first sketch you made, or the final result?
For that particular project, I think the final is better than most of the other. The final visualization works better than most of the in-between sketches I had. I had another project in here, the nature one, where I actually think that my in-between, all of the in-between sketches I had, I actually think it looks better than the final. But okay, hold on. So it looked, this is all of the, it was trying to like, this is the example was trying to, oh my God, draw more natural looking flowers. And so I feel like all of the in-between ideas, especially some of these more like branches looking ideas, I feel like I actually, so some of this visually I think looks much better than what I ended up with, which was this. So there's definitely
the
thank you so much. So there's definitely both kinds for me.
So completing this topic, is there anything that you would do differently, like in terms of the book or it can be about the projects or the whole book?
I mean, I'm happy we did it this way, but I do feel that maybe we should have put some sort of time constraint on things, so we would not overexert ourselves that much, and or maybe some sort of constraint, because we had this process where each next month, we want to make it even bigger and better than the month before, but that's not very sustainable over a year. Not if you also have like jobs on the side, but also like creatively. In terms of the book, I'm really, really happy with the final result that we have right now, but it took some work in the final weeks before the printing deadline. So in that sense, I wish. So the book was completely sort of redesigned in a second phase, because we were not happy with the first phase, and if we'd only realized that we like data visualization, but we don't know book design. So we had first come up with our sort of own design of how things should look, and we were for a long time that was just going to be the way it was, and then we saw the book designed that way, and we just felt that it wasn't good enough. It was just not there yet. And if we just realized that before and had months before the printing deadline had gone out and looked for a design agency to actually do the design for us, maybe we would have had a much more comfortable interaction instead of trying to do it all in like 48-hour days.
in the last month or something. I think I totally agree with Nadieh. I do think that there is I think every single thing that we had to go through is really great learning lessons. I don't think I would want it to ever go away. I think it's just things that we would apply for next time. Not trying to say that we'll have another book. I'm just saying, like, if we ever do this again, I I would just go directly to a professional to lay out the design instead of having done it ourselves first. I think it's a lot of these kinds of lessons of I wouldn't do anything that we did differently because they were all valuable, painful sometimes, but valuable lessons. I think adding on to what Nadieh was saying about constraints and because I think for me personally, for example, the reason why things started getting bigger and bigger is in retrospect, I can recognize that a lot of it had to do with we didn't expect the project to get the attention that it did. And when it did get that to get that attention, I didn't know what to do with the attention. And I now realize that, basically at that time I was like, every project needs to be bigger and better or else people will think I'm a failure, which I now realize is but I think that that kind of like psychological pressure I put on myself for this project made it a lot harder to finish. So if anything, I think that this project has also taught me kind of has at least given me a little bit more emotional maturity in terms of how to handle external attention, external validation on projects that are just personally for myself. And ultimately, I think the lesson I learned is that I should just make it to a point where I'm happy with it and I'm like proud to publish it and not be too worried about how it will get how people react to it. I think that was just immaturity of youth.
Fair enough.
It's good experience. We kind of know from some podcasts and other stuff that you really know each other's work quite well. I mean, you went through it for a long time. So I would ask you, Nadieh, to tell us what's Shirley's favorite project in the book, like from her view.
I think that's isn't that Fearless? I mean,
ooh, yeah. I have multiple favorites, so this is why, yeah.
Yeah, I know, because you always also really like Legends, and I think Film Flowers is a good one, and Hamilton, and you have so many great ones.
Actually, all of them.
But I think she loves Fearless, which is the last chapter in our book, because it was actually completely different in a way, because it was a physical installation of a data visualization about import. Yeah, I am trying to find it.
Shirley's
I got one.
Shirley.
So it's there you go. Yes. So it's sort of these orbs that were hanging in a dark space and with lights, and if you turn them around, you could see more information about a women that's been important in the history of computer science, and then it would light up because you sort of you're showing that interest, and you can see more about them to give sort of these almost forgotten women more, mark them in the minds of the people seeing that. But I think she really loved, because Shirley really wants to also explore that phase of making more immersive things and things away from the screen installations. And this was sort of a first step towards that, and also working together with two other great women. She was doing a residency at ITP at the time. I always forget the order of those three letters. So that's why I think. But she also really loves Legends because. That always I also want to show that one because I've told her already, but it's my favorite. It's my favorite.
Shirley doesn't have to answer for you anymore.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Yeah,
it's such a gorgeous project about female Nobel laureates, because there are not enough. It's insane that you can plot them all quite big on one page, and the men is just too much to plot. But yeah, that's also a beautiful project.
Totally.
Thank you, Nadieh.
So actually, Shirley and Nadieh also answered. Like, I wanted to ask you to mention Nadieh's favorite project, but
yeah. So I know 100% certainty that Nadieh's favorite is her Myths and Legends. Okay. All right. I'm gonna. Okay. It is Figures in the Sky. It is also the last project that she worked on. We did the last few projects out of order. But I knew for 100% certain, I knew there's other projects that you like, but like this is by far your number one. And like, first because it's just astronomy. This is like a topic that you love. But also I think it's just like the amount of care and attention that she put into it. It's actually one of my favorite chapters from her too, because I think all of the in progress is just so beautiful. All of the things that she took into consideration. Like, oh gosh. And oh my god, this is a struggle. And I think my favorite story from like about your motivation for making this visualization is about how you were inspired to look into all of the different constellations from different cultures, and how especially the cultures that aren't highlighted as much in the Western world. And then also the reactions that you get from like teachers, and the like super nice messages you get about how they're using it in their classrooms. And so I think those are super cute stories. But that's why this is Nadieh's favorite project. I actually don't know if you have a second, like if you rank them. I feel like you also really like maybe this is incorrect because I've only ever heard you talk about Figures in the Sky as your favorite, but I also feel like you really like your Dragon Ball Z and your Cardcaptor Sakura. Are those correct? I feel like those are some of your favorites.
Oh yeah, well, those I'm definitely happy about. I think Olympic Feathers also has like a good spot in there, because it was this sort of vague idea that just kind of worked together or came together really well in a way, and it was just so fun to work on as well. Yeah, but
yeah, that one
is definitely number one.
Yeah, and I think the Olympic Feathers one, that one has such a fun story of like where your inspiration came from, which was like all of the peacock. You wanted to imitate peacock feathers.
Peacock feathers. Yeah. Doesn't look like peacock feathers at all, but that was the inspiration.
Yeah, you talk about that. Yeah.
Okay, super. So it's time for us to go back to the questions from our audience, and we have one here from Enrico. So which do you find most challenging? Being creative, interesting, aesthetic, finding the story, wrangling with the data, or building the bits?
I think the first one, making it look interesting, effective, and unique, is because it's so there's no rule book for it in a way. Like wrangling the data is there are kind of rules that you can go through to try and clean up your data, or maybe different models to try. Building the viz is technical in a way, and can sometimes hold you back because you don't know how to do it. But the creative side, figuring out how to make it look interesting, is so, if I make the same viz in a week from now or a month from now, it might look completely different, because I've, like, in the last day or week, I've seen different things, and it's very hard if you're not happy with how something looks. Sometimes it can be really hard to figure out how to make it look better, or how to make it look interesting, because it's not really rules on this, follow these steps and your visualization will look good no matter what. That doesn't really exist. So that's why I find it the most difficult. And also when I started a new project, it's kind of where most of my fears lie, in a way, where I feel like, how am I going to tackle this? How am I going to visualize this data in a way that people will find it effective and beautiful? I don't know. It's a black hole for me right now, and I just have to dive in and see where I come out.
Super.
Yeah, I think for me, actually, it's great to hear you have these fears because everything you create ends up looking beautiful. So sometimes I just
So true.
So makes you appear more human, Nadieh.
Thank you, Shirley. Thank
I'm
you.
not a robot yet.
We have this running joke that Nadieh is a robot. Or it's not running. It's just a very old joke that just resurfaced just now. It's like years old joke. So for me, I think I actually struggle with like I wouldn't say as much wrangling the data, but like kind of trying to understand the data. I think the data analysis side is like my weakest, and so I always feel the most insecure trying to find. So hand in hand with trying to find a good story, is trying to understand the data enough to have that interesting angle. So I think that's my biggest challenge of like, I just don't know. I just don't yet have enough experience or skills to be able to know, like to what Nadieh said, like know the steps of like what to try with the data set to come up with something interesting. I think for me, after that, I think after that, the creative aesthetics aspect, I have a lot of fun with. I know that like it's not always like I'm not always successful with like a good creative aesthetics data viz, but I think no matter what, I usually really enjoy the process. So I don't think I struggle with that as much. It really is the data side for me.
Yes, nice. So I will have one more for you from the audience. That is, after your collaboration, the two of you launched very successful careers as a freelancer startup with designers. How has client work been different from your collaboration work? I would even on a personal side say like what changed for you, because it was also your intention to build up a portfolio, was it right? Yeah.
In a way, well, we started the project really to just have fun and force ourselves to create more personal work, but not necessarily, well, at least for me, because I wasn't a freelancer at the time and I wasn't really thinking about it, but I just wanted to do more database, but it eventually turned into a really good portfolio kind of project to use for my portfolio. But how is it different for collaboration? I guess, there are no clients that tell you that you need to do things in a certain way, or clients that maybe have a deadline or a color palette or fonts that you have to hold on to. It's usually I find that fonts are more difficult for them to step away from than colors. They're usually more okay with, we'll use slightly different colors, but you have to use our house font, even though it's like a completely different. Like I once had to do an astronomy kind of project, and I had this sort of kind of spacey font, and they had these curly fonts that were their house logo thingy, and it was like these curly fonts inside this sort of astronomy themed stuff. Like, there are times when it's too much, when it does, when it, never mind. But I think in general, I've actually through data sketches really sort of found my way into how I best work on a certain project from start to finish, and that kind of flows into my client work these days. So data sketches really help me with finding how I do things, except of course I have to find my own data and I have to definitely clean my own data. With clients, I don't always have to do that, but there's this very iterative process that I have to email them every update that I do. But I was doing that with Shirley in a way anyways. Like, I went through this and this and this, but when then Shirley says, hey, what about this idea? Shirley's idea are usually good ideas, but my client's ideas aren't always good ideas. No,
it's a bit of a different
are
feedback,
basically always good ideas. Let me just state that.
Yeah.
That was.
But also, I'm not like, I won't pay you if you don't do my ideas. So totally different. Oh, thank you. Yeah, those are actually really good points. I think probably very similar in terms of like, I think data sketches really helped me kind of figure out my process. So then like when I started doing client work, I think it was it was a pretty smooth transition in terms of like figuring out how I work with my clients. I would say that for me, part of the reason for starting data sketches was for the portfolio work, since that was when I had just quit my full-time job to try out freelancing. So yeah, I think for me personally, most of it was for fun, but then part of it was hoping for a portfolio, a bigger portfolio. Also, hello to Diego. Hi.
Yes.
And and also, I think the biggest difference for me, to add on to what Nadieh was saying, is I don't think there is much of a difference between like client work and working with Nadieh for data sketches, other than I guess like Nadieh is there for support. Like she's just really supportive and gives really great feedback also. But she's not gonna withhold payment from me if I don't do things her way. But I think the biggest thing for me is that with data sketches, with client work, I get to work on more, I don't have a better word for it other than more serious data sets that I either wouldn't normally have access to. So I think, for example, the like bust out article with The Guardian, with the like data around homelessness, that's not something that I would have been easily able to gather or have the resources to gather. And also that's a topic I would not have tried to touch by myself. Like I would not be anywhere near qualified to work on that topic by myself. So I think the thing that I appreciate the most with client work is that I get to work, a lot of times I get to work with domain experts on really interesting topics that I would not be able to do by myself and should not do by myself. Whereas data sketches, almost everything we work on is like just super fun. And people should not be getting mad at us for like anything in data sketches. If we I don't think we get anything wrong, but even if we get anything wrong in there, I don't think any of these projects should set off the internet. But like if we get anything in any of these like serious data sets, like that and anything that's misleading, if we do anything like unintentionally misleading with the data set, like that's just not, it's not acceptable.
It's a personal fun project, so the ones that data sketches at least. So before we come nearly to an end, I have one more audience question about a technical side. Did you have any project with machine learning, visual analytics? Do you use Python to prepare data, or what do you think even about TensorFlow? So it's a lot compressed.
Lots of questions.
Yeah.
Machine learning. I don't think I don't think not like the actual machine learning thing. More the lighter versions that would fall under data science. For example, for one project about books, I use text mining to look for trends within the titles of almost 1,000 fantasy books. But I wouldn't call that machine learning in a way. We don't do any sort of image recognition kind of things either. I'm using some very simple k-means clustering to find out the main colors that are used in the cover arts of the Cardcaptor Sakura, each of the 50 sort of how do I call that, chapters? That's the word. But again, that's more data science than machine learning, I'd say. Visual analytics, to me, that's a term used by SAP for their tools, so I'm not actually quite know what visual analytics is, except from plotting your data and gathering understanding from that, and then knowing what to do next. I use R. I don't use Python very often. Sometimes I just have to because maybe an API only exists for Python, which I had a year ago with interfacing with Hubble telescope data, or some other kind of library only exists for Python. But otherwise, I use R. I think TensorFlow is really awesomely cool. I've never used it, but when I see people giving presentations about it, I'm always like, I should use it. And then, of course, there are like 100 other things that I want to do and hasn't come up yet, but I think it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Very similar answers. Never used TensorFlow. think it's awesome, don't know how to use it, or and what. No, please keep the questions up. There's a lot of them. Sorry, thank you.
Difficult to remember everything.
Too much to remember, sorry.
But I just haven't figured out how I would potentially use TensorFlow in any of my projects. I did not use Python. I tried a very long time ago, and the context switching between languages just messed with my brain so much that I was like, you know what, I'll just stick with JavaScript, which is extremely inefficient, but JavaScript is getting, like, node packages are getting better and better in terms of like what I'm trying to do. I'm going to I'm going to assume a different, like, I'm going to put my own definition of visual analytics in there, in that I'm going to take it as kind of like exploratory visual tools, kind of like, I'm going to take it that way. And if that's the case, yes, I have, I think, made more interactive exploratory tools for data. I think I did that with the end of Hamilton. I do that a lot of times with my client projects. I think they're really fun, but I tend to prefer expository data viz a lot more, of like, because with exploratory tools, it's much less about. So with expository storytelling, I think it's much more finding the interesting things in the data set ourselves and communicating that to an audience. Whereas like exploratory is much more like, I'm trying to just give the audience a tool to do their own exploration, to find their own interesting things. And I find that a little bit less satisfying for me. And in terms of machine learning, I've never made any like machine learning models or anything, but I have used like services. Like I have used like IBM Watson for, it's I think tone analysis. So like if they sound angry or happy in the text. I have used image recognition, like Google Cloud image recognition, to like figure out where faces are for the Obama's project. And so for me, machine learning is like, I don't have enough education on machine learning to like, make my own models, but I think it's really fun and useful as another way of generating kind of metadata on top of my data set to use in my visualization. Yeah.
Very cool.
Nice, thanks.
Super. So it's time to finish, unfortunately, but one last question. Who inspires you in the field? So
Nadieh.
Give us. No, it doesn't count. It doesn't count.
Really? Really?
It does count.
Apart from you, who inspires you in the field? Give us some names, please.
Ooh.
Well, Giorgio Lupi, I think it's amazing what she's done.
One, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It's true, totally.
I actually have been really enjoying Amelia Wattenberg, her work. So she's currently at the Pudding. I think she's working in Polygraph, but sometimes she'll put out like blog posts or and just the quality of her work is so high, so amazing.
She has also a big book on
big,
something.
I've never read her book. Sorry.
Yeah, it's full stack history, she called it.
I've never read her book, and I think I have more impression on her blog posts, but like I feel like everything she does just has so much care and attention in there. I really like her work. I in general really appreciate Pudding's work in terms of their visual essays and storytelling. And then I actually think in terms of like people who I guess started a little bit after us, but I think is like doing really great work, is I think Will Chase. I think he's been putting out some quality work also. But yeah, other than that, I think, Moritz Steffner like always has amazing work.
Great quality.
Georgia has amazing work. Yeah.
Jan Willem Toof always an inspiration to me.
the usual suspects.
But but also outside of that, I think both
Show
of
that
us
one.
have
Thank you.
so nice. Matt Delaurier. I don't know.
Oh,
How to say
yes.
that. I
Matt
really love his
Twitter.
work. Dazzle, Matt
Yeah.
Dazzle. That's also in my mind how it is. I also really love the work of Nicolas Rougeux. I was probably not saying.
Yes. Oh my God, how could I forget? Yeah. So many people do beautiful work. Yeah.
Brendan
Sorry,
Doss, also, Brendan
yeah.
Doss, also kind of outside of database, but doing amazing work. Craig Taylor, who does really great sort of math-based visualizations in Houdini, just eye candy always. Yeah, and the people from Notes.io. Yeah, I'll probably stop here. I mean, so many.
No, please. No, I didn't mean to stop you. Yeah, but we have a great sentence to finish all this. And sorry, it's not this one, but this one.
Yes.
Perfect to resume this.
Thank you.
Yeah, you really need to go through all the comments when you can on YouTube. They are amazing, and of course, we couldn't put all the questions here. So if you have time at any points, please answer. And yeah, so thank you so much for coming. This was a pleasure, and I was really waiting to have you on a personal note, just because Nadieh is the main reason why we are here today. Of course, you both have a huge importance in our path in data visualization, but on a personal note, Nadieh made me to go to Berlin in 2018, where we met. Both of us, me and Coro, and at InfoPlus conference, we mentioned this several times. Yeah, so thank you so much. Coro, I don't know if you want to add something.
Yeah, I just can say like data sketches was one of the reasons, really, like my inspirable reason while I was studying in my master and also going more to data was like a big inspiration. Because what I really, really love, and I have to say, it's totally worth the effort, was like your write-ups, of course. It's like just seeing the final result is not the same. And this is why I'm so looking forward to have the book in my hands, because it's like, it's so special that you put all this huge effort in there to have like the sketches, the write-ups and stuff. That's just amazing. I have to just say that.
Can't wait to have the book.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting us and for all of the super great questions also. You were like great questions.
Yeah. Super great. So we'll have some announcements to make. So thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. The thank you. I'm now mixing up everything. However, but this one.
Yeah.
Already so excited. You got nervous with my clicking here. Going to their announcements.
And first thing, but we need to mention Fidzai. It was there in the... Yeah, because this is possible because of Fidzai as well, our sponsors. So thank you very much. And we can go for the announcements. Yeah, actually, this time we want just to promote good work that we know of, and so there is this World Data League that you need to check. So World Data League is an international competition that brings together brilliant minds for the data science field to solve social-oriented problems, and this is the key. So that's why it's so important to be part of such movements. So submissions for these hackathons already for the first hackathon already finished, but keep an eye on their website for sure. New opportunities will come. And yeah, that was what I had to say about World Data League. You can go to the next one.
And then we have one more thing where you can still all take part of it. It's a 30-day shard challenge coming up in April. So it will be for 30 days, every day, a topic within these 5 categories you see there. And you should totally check it out. You don't have to like push out every day something, but maybe it helps you or inspires you, even just to follow it or to take part. So it doesn't have to be
someone for a collaboration.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, find someone.
That's a good.
And,
if you needed
maybe it's a starting point.
Yeah.
Of a great thing. So yeah, check that one as well out. And as mentioned, thank you everyone for putting out there so many great questions for us to ask and to be here with us online today.
And make sure that you are here for the next one, probably next month. From now on, we plan to be here every month until the end of the year. So can't wait to tell you the next name. So keep an eye on our Twitter and follow us in regular channels, of course.
Everybody stay well wherever you are in the world. Whatever weather you have outside, stay warm and cozy and healthy. And we see us the next time.
Beijinhos.